as the show's getting closer, I think Neta and I were, I guess just seeing things a little differently. So um, again, I couldn't have done the show without her. She was super helpful. She's a super smart woman. Um, but as you'll find out, that in the end, like it just didn't go, I guess, the best way it could have gone. So that was kind of challenging. There was some resistance, obviously. Um, Now, so leading up to the show, it's like, all right, the show's coming. How are we promoting the show, right? How are we going to be certain that people will show up? We had no idea. Like, I had there was no way to measure in advance because we weren't doing tickets, right? We weren't selling tickets because it wasn't a paid event.
Hmm.
Um, so basically, we kind of just had to rely on teams letting their uh, members know, like their brothers, their sisters. And so I vaguely, I think I remember now, we could have prepared like an email, like with all the like marketing details of when, where, when is the show, and then I think we forwarded to like the team captains or the team leads, and then they forwarded it on to to their people. So I think we were just blindly trusting that people would share the show details. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I
that's
remember,
basically it.
yeah, I remember that there were, email listservs. Every organization had one at
Ah,
the time. And so, like,
right.
getting an email through that listserv reached all of your brotherhood or sisterhood at the same time in one shot. So it was actually not, it was very efficient to get a message through email. Uh,
Right.
yeah. And I recall there were flyers at all the other events. So, like the Puerto Rican Day Parade, where there were going to be a lot of Greek organizations participating. So I know that I saw you and Neta in many places along the way.
Really? Were we handing out?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
I remember. Yeah, you guys came over to where we were as a group, the step team of LUL, and you guys talked to us to make sure everything was good and golden. And Neta was very kind and friendly about everything, and that's where I first shook hands with her and got to meet her. So it was a good experience, and all the other step teams and salute teams and stroll teams had some sort of presence at that event.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned it because I totally did not remember that at all.
Yeah.
Um, I know also some people wanted to know how did we come up with the name for for the show, which we forgot to mention. And I mean, it's a very self evident type of title, you know, the Latino Greek summer step and stroll show. I mean, I think I wasn't trying to get fancy with it. I was just really calling it what it is.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, it was straightforward. Not too much thinking in advance. And also, when you hear that, you know exactly what type of event this is. So that was basically the mindset.
Yeah.
So the day of the show, we were ambitious and we actually wanted to do a barbecue as well. So as Jesus reminded me, there actually was a barbecue that was scheduled for after the show was over, so people can hang out and eat. And I think you said that Robert Pacheco was in charge of the
Yeah. Yeah.
barbecue.
He organized, or he was put in charge of it. Yep.
So we want to thank Robert Pacheco for Rob was pretty helpful as well and integral. Robert Pacheco, not Robert Diaz. That's another Robert that
Hmm.
becomes also important later on. Um, so we wanted to kind of create this like event, this cool like multi prong event where it's like a show and then go hang out and have a barbecue, and that's great. So I didn't go to the actual barbecue. I forget what I ended up doing after the show, but it was definitely not there. I think I was just tired and exhausted, and yeah, so that was also planned in the weekend. And so you said you didn't make the barbecue either, right?
No, no, we were so exhausted. It was just like all those months of practice. We were done. We should have gone, but yeah, we split up, and I think we went to the after party afterwards, but we didn't go to the
Where
actual
was this
actual.
after party?
That I can't. It had to be in the Bronx somewhere because that's where the venue was, and that's where
Ah,
many of the Greeks were. So I want to say it was Jimmy's. I want to say it was in
really?
Jimmy's
Jimmy's Bronx?
or it was, Jimmy's Bronx Cafe, or it was another spot in the Bronx that everybody showed up to. It was a small. It was unofficial. It wasn't like an official after party,
Right.
if I remember correctly. So it's like everybody's going here, so we had to go, you know. And yeah,
You know what's now, now that you mention that was always the issue with doing these shows, like hosting these shows and actually, producing the shows, is that when you have a stroll show or a step show or a Greek type of entertainment show, when you have an immediate after party, it was always like the dress code was always the issue to get into the after party. Like if you're going to a club in New York, you can't wear sneakers. So that was always like the crux of the problem. It's like you can't expect people to be at a venue ready to party, but then have to change and put some wingtip shoes on and like collared shirt. So that always threw a wrench really in all of our stuff, I think.
yeah. I don't think we ever figured it out. It always seemed like
No.
the best venue was the one that could do all of it, like
Yes.
show, party, blah blah blah. But those were rare. So it's like the Henry Fonda Theater in LA comes to mind as one of
Yes.
those
For,
unique.
for me, Amasura in Queens comes to mind.
Amasura is another good one. Yep, you're right. You're right.
But I feel like the Amasura, and Amasura was, what year was Amasura? Let's see.
Oh one. That was 01, the first time.
2001. So yeah, so in 2001 we end up doing a great show, and we have the after party right then, immediately starting right afterwards. And I remember it like emptying out like pretty quickly, right? Do you remember that?
Yeah, that's right. Everyone I think had to exit so they could get back in,
No,
or
no, they couldn't. No, I think they just left. That you're thinking of Laboom when people had to exit
oh
and come back in.
oh I see. Okay, yeah.
No, Amazura was like no straight party right afterwards, but like people just left. So I always felt like, what's the point of struggling to do an after party when no one's really gonna show up? It was, I don't know, it was just a pain in the ass.
Yeah. But anyway, getting back to Roberto
Yes.
Clemente State Park. So we know the teams that were there. We know the MCs.
Right.
Were
What's
you
next?
surprised by the attendance numbers, like as you were kind of waiting
Yeah.
for people to trickle in?
Yeah, I think I was happily surprised. Like I had really no expectation, no gauge. I had really, there was nothing, no benchmark really to go off of. And I think we had just said that the final number was of roughly 300 people.
Yeah.
300 people to show up for a free event. I mean, you would think that more people show up, but I think also the timing, 10 a.m. on a Saturday is not the ideal time to do a show, a free event. So, but no, I was very happy with it, So, I mean, to the point where obviously I did it again the following year because I felt like it was successful. Like you don't do something again if it was a complete disaster.
Unless you learn from it, right? So
True.
we had markets too where we failed the first year and then we did something slightly differently and then it got fixed for future years. So yeah, it's an interesting dynamic, but you're right in that sense.
Right. No. So yeah. So 300 people. It was successful. We get there, and again, things that you have to learn along the way is that the venue didn't have any air conditioning because it was a gymnasium.
Oh, yes, that's right. That's right.
So it was a really hot July day in New York, and it was literally a sauna in that gym. There was no ventilation. Thank goodness there was no COVID because everyone would have got COVID. It was so stifling, like no air circulation, very hot, like but yeah, again, things that you don't think about, like that's not optimal.
Yeah. I remember. I think. Yeah. After our performance, we immediately all ran to the windows, to the sliding doors that were at the gym, because that's the only place you could get any draft or breeze.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
So again, a few key mistakes that I did as a planner. I didn't check that we had wooden floors for the step team. That would seem obvious, but not to me. There's no air conditioning or ventilation. Not a good idea in the middle of summer. But again, it's a free venue. It's tough to look a gift horse in the mouth, Did you tell me that there were like high school kids also that came to
Yeah,
the
yeah.
show?
I think Karen Pedrosa also brought a cohort of about 15 to 20 high school students because she wanted to show them Latinos in college. You know, they
Mhm.
have events like this. So yeah, it was a family friendly crowd because there were, you know, younger people. There were a lot of I think out of all the shows we did in retrospect, the first one was the only one where there was a significant non-Greek presence, like from the audience
Really?
perspective. Yeah, like I remember my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law. There were all these people that don't usually attend or that didn't later on. So it was the most non-Greek audience that we had, but it was still good representation, you know, across the
Right,
board. Yeah.
right. Okay. So, all right. So it's the day of the show. Teams are performing. So, Jesus, can you walk everyone through? All right. So basically, I'm gonna set it up. So basically, LUL um, decides on their own that they're going to create a skit that this is basically every fraternity, and then I'll let Jesus take it from there.
Yeah. So we were young and kind of stupid, and we knew this was a unity event. We were told that several times prior, and
Yes.
we still had this idea of, you know, making it not controversial, but just being a bit more aggressive with our messaging during the event. So, you know, for
Nice
people
way
who
to
are,
say it.
yeah, so there's
Aggressive with the messaging.
tremendous rivalries in the space. I mean, I'm friends with a lot of the rivals of that time now, but during that time, it was we were at each other's throats. I mean, the funny part, as I look back, and as many people now, and even at that time, there were probably a lot more mature folks out there who could have told me, you know, like, look, there's so few Latinos in college, and there's even fewer Latino Greeks in college. Like, you guys are such a small, dynamic bunch, and there's no need to like be battling. But we didn't know any better, so
Right.
we created a whole show, about 10 minutes long, but 3 minutes of that show were going to be very aggressive, chanting towards other groups. And
Verbally assaulting other fraternities
yes,
present that were present.
that were going to be physically there. And so we brought out props, and we said some things that I'm sure, I don't even remember now, but like I'm sure
Yeah.
they were hurtful to other organizations at the
Right.
time. And
Can, you- do you-
basically, yeah, go ahead.
can you remember which org specifically were mentioned in this verbal assault?
Well, I know we had props, that
Yes.
were meant to represent Sigma Lambda Beta, Lambda
Yes.
Sigma Epsilon.
No. Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh,
there was the
okay.
baby blue because we mentioned. I remember in one of the chants we mentioned the baby blue, um, LAU at the time as well,
That's
Lambda
right.
Alpha Upsilon. And I think they performed actually as
Yes.
well. So there were the other fraternity that took place. Shout out to
Totally.
Starkey S.Bib.
Esta Bib and Arturo Gonzalez. Don't forget.
Yes, Jesus, the other Jesus Ruiz, was there.
Yes.
Um,
Jesus Ruiz was at Eastern Connecticut State University, I think he went to.
yeah, yeah, a lot of good guys who, you know, to
Yes.
this day, if I ever
Good
call
guys.
them, we'll have a great time, you know, just chatting it up. But anyway, so yeah, we take 3 minutes of this performance and we do the non-unity thing in a unity event, and we're the
Right.
only organization. It should be noted that
Yes.
stepped out of line in this way. Everyone else was pretty wholesome in their performances,
Right.
and yeah, it didn't go over so well. Like the crowd was kind of stunned that we were doing this or going this far.
Yeah. Was it like silence? Like
Yeah,
it was like a pin drop? Like you
yeah.
can hear a pin
It
drop?
was kind of like, what are these guys doing, and why are
Why are they
they?
doing it at a Unity Greek event?
It stood out like a sore thumb. And yeah, it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good afterwards because when we
Yeah.
step off and we know it's like the kid who does something and gets in trouble. Like we know we did something we shouldn't have. And Neta, who's one of the show producers, comes over and lays it in thick on us about, what were we doing? Because that's not what the purpose of the show was.
Right.
Do you remember? You've got to remember some of the.
I remember being berated. So here's the interesting part about this whole situation is that I knew what LUL was going to do. I knew it was coming, but for some reason I was just like, because in theory, right, Lambda Theta Phi and Lambda Theta, they could have all been doing something, preparing something similar, right? So I think you guys wanted to just, I guess, be prepared. Maybe. Oh, you forgot to mention that what made it even worse, that LUL was the last fraternity to go in that show.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have like the last say in the show, boom, this everyone, show's over, go home. Like that makes it worse.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We felt at the time we had a reputation of being hardcore, so we wanted to maintain that. It was wrong, obviously, looking back, but like at the time, it was so right in my view and in the team's view.
But did you feel all right? So after you actually do it, after you do the skit, were you personally, were you a little embarrassed? Like this probably wasn't the best idea immediately
No,
afterwards?
I mean, it wasn't I knew, yes.
Or you were like, fuck it.
I knew it wasn't the best idea, but there was this kind of like bad boy type persona that I liked, and it was just like, yeah, that's how we do. We're the hardest organization, disregard what you heard, disregard what you've been told. That's what we were, man.
That's what it is. It is what it is.
So yeah, we were cocky at the time,
Yeah.
but like, yes, there was remorse for having done it that way when we didn't have to.
You had remorse, or everyone on your team had remorse?
No, after, I say over time, we but not at that moment. No, at that moment there was like stubbornness, cockiness, confidence, all that good stuff, like baked in.
So immediately after that LUL skit, I go backstage where I think all the teams are, or somewhere backstage, and Neta, like a bullet comes at me, and she's like, "What the F just happened? How could you allow this to happen? This is you." She just basically berates me, and like I had nothing to say. Like I really don't remember replying because there was nothing good. I could give no good answer because it was very poor judgment on my part. To, I guess, not to allow it to happen. I could have stopped it, right? I guess I could have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I could have stopped it, but I chose not to. So that once Neta comes over and just basically gives me the business, I remember, yeah, I was completely wrong, but then that just amplified the disconnect, I guess, between her and I. And I remember, like, after this first show, I can't remember specifics, but I know that like we just had different ideas on what this show should be or could be. Were you gonna add something?
No, I was just gonna say that it's so interesting how in retrospect we can see clearly, that definitely, as you were describing it hit me like, yes, that probably was the starting point where the fork in the road started to really divide, like you said.
The line in the sand had been crossed. So after she basically tells me like, what the F, man, that's totally, and she was right. I think she wanted it to be like a more wholesome and like happy. And I'm not anti-wholesome and happy, but like I'm also like things need to be organic at the same time. Like let's not pretend we love each other because we actually hate each other. Like these orgs hate each other. Like fraternities hate each other. Back then, I don't know now, but like they were competition. Like every member that pledged that organization was 10 members less that wasn't able to pledge my organization. So that's a problem. And I imagine sororities are the same thing, right? Sororities don't like each other, right? Well, what do you
like
say?
I said earlier, yeah, it was a small population, and because it was so small, we were at each other's throats. And yeah, you're right, it wasn't love. It was like, I over the years I saw some collaborations between different organizations down the road, but that was, and here's a funny thing about all that, and again, we don't have data to prove this, but like the fact that this event and future events brought groups together, like we were literally putting them in dressing rooms that they shared, and there were a bunch
Yeah.
of them, and they had to like coexist in these small dressing rooms full of like 60 people. And like we built relationships that between organizations that weren't being built because we were the only ones bringing them together. Like think about it, like there weren't organizations naturally just saying, oh, let's have a co-event with this group or that group. So there was a lot of rivalry, to your point. There was a lot
Yeah.
of anger and animosity, but this event was the one that was going to bring it together. And unfortunately there was
Right.
some disunity along the way there too.
Right. So then I'll add this little tidbit. So after the show's over, there's a lot of awkwardness. There's a lot of like, what wasn't there? Am I not remembering this incorrectly? Like, wasn't there like beef, like in the, like guys with between like frats that
Well, yeah,
had
I
beef with
mean,
each other,
I
or
have,
no?
yeah,
Like
yeah, no,
at the
for,
show, because of directly related to the show, like, are there any issues that like
yeah, yeah, no,
escalated?
I remember, well, in terms of physicality, like, I don't think there were any
No.
fights,
Yeah.
but to that point, there were times where I was at events after that show where people remembered, oh, that's one of the guys on the team. And then as we
Ooh,
walked
like this
outside,
stuff.
outside of the shows, it'd be like, oh yeah, those are the Lambda guys from the Step Show. Like I heard that, and I remember at one point having to break up a near altercation outside of an
Between
event because
between who?
it was. I'm not going to name the organization because it was so petty.
Okay.
It was a drunk member who approached myself and another one of our step team brothers,
Where was
and
this at?
this was in New Jersey. It was a small after party, completely unrelated to the shows. It
Mhm.
was on even a separate month, and I remember being in that parking lot, and the guy recognized me, and my colleague from the step team, who was very inebriated at the time, said, "F yeah, that's who we are," and almost created an unnecessary brawl after the fact. So, but I was the peacemaker at that time, and trying to just kind of end it. But yeah, so yes, Anthony, to your question, it did create ripples of kind of animosity after the show. But fortunately for us, the teams liked that first experience enough, and
Right.
it started something. You set the ball in motion. You had the
Right.
guts to put this together and then kind of push it out to the world. And fortunate for all of us that it brought many people together. It brought our company, the organization, into a space where we could do more of it. And I'll shut up because I could ramble on this stuff, but yeah.
No. No, no, not at all. That's all good points that you're right. We started something here in year one. So basically after the show, I guess I took some time to reflect, and I thought, we should totally do this again. And Neta felt the same way. So, she didn't hate me that much after the show because she wanted to do another show in 2000. And in 2000, we were able to go, elevate it um, to Columbia University Alfred Lerner Auditorium, which is actually an official auditorium with. So the way Alfred had it, the way that auditorium is that they have a second floor balcony with fixed seating, and then the gym floor you had to have like fold up chairs, but there's an official stage.
Yeah. Then
Um,
I would say let's save that conversation for the
yes,
next episode because it's
that
the
is
2000 show is really, I think, where
yes,
everything starts to move like in a certain
yeah,
direction. And from Neta to you to me, there were so
right,
many like different pieces that start to really move at that event.
right.
And it was exciting to say the least. But I don't want to, just kind of coming back to
I
99. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So no, in the next and episode 2 of season 1 of two frat boys from college start a business, we'll get into Alfred Lerner and how the audience exponentially grew, and that's when the light bulb went off for me and said, there's definitely something here. But in terms of 99, I mean, again, it ends on a sour note because LUL almost ruins the show for everyone. LUL almost single-handedly tanked the entire show. But luckily, again, I'm exaggerating, but luckily, again, we do it again in 2000. And what I'm looking forward to is talking about the expansion of this show and all the different cities and California, West Coast, how great California is. So we want to talk about Lambda New in California. In Chicago, we're going to be talking about Gamma Phi Omega, Gamma Alpha Omega.
Both.
The Gaios. Who else? Who else is in Chicago? Regional Midwestern orgs. We want to talk about Florida teams great people on the way we met in Florida from the. I remember for some reason in Florida, I remember Mu Sigma Upsilon as a very helpful organization in the beginning, especially in Central Florida.
Yeah.
Where and in addition, we're going to talk about how this thing that Neta and I started, and then Jesus joins to grows, and then we end up forming LatinoStep.com, which little T-shirt for everyone. This is a little relic I pulled out for this episode. So anything you want to add, Jesus, before we wrap it?
No, great recap. Episode 1 is in the books, and really excited to continue to kind of talk about this stuff. Hopefully we'll have Neta on in one of the future episodes just to kind of hear her version of it.
Oh yeah, I would love to hear her version
because she's a great human being, as you've mentioned several times. And
I believe she's a speech pathologist professionally right now.
Cool.
I think her hourly rate is like $2,000 an hour.
She's well deserved. But
True.
Excellent. Yeah, looking forward to the next episode. And thanks everyone for tuning in. And please drop your questions, comments to our email that we'll post below. So thank you.
Thank you.